Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome in. It is Sports by the Book Football Frenzy, starting you off in Week 5 in the National Football League. I'm Jeff Parles. Well-dressed man on the other side of the desk is Ryan McCormick.
Yes, it is.
It's good.
Welcome to Week 5, everybody.
Yeah, Week 5, Week 6 in college football. You blink your eyes, and we're already in October. Crazy enough.
So fast.
Yeah, it sure does. Well, the NFL, September ended with Mason Rudolph arguably being the better, not arguably, was the better quarterback in a game that featured 3 quarterbacks on Monday, which is all what we expected. But on the last day of September, even though the Lions, a good performance by Detroit, even though Seattle had, I didn't believe the box score when I looked at it. When Seattle had 38 first downs, which is the second most in an NFL game in the last 15 years, and they still lost the game
to lose.
by 2 scores, which is kind of a statistical anomaly. Well, Jared Goff also didn't throw an incomplete pass, so there was a lot of fun stuff. It's always good when you give out a sweat-free winner on this show, Ryan. And
we got both of them.
We got them easily. Got them easily when it was all. Yeah, we didn't even have to. The funny thing with Monday, as soon as Mason Rudolph went in the game, I bet it 2 more times because it's like, hey, I don't have to deal with Will Levis anymore. And that was the only concern in that game. We shift gears to the NFC South tonight. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers go to the Atlanta Falcons. Tampa's 3-1. Atlanta's 2-2. Falcons last week. Young Wei Koo's 54-yard field goal, enough to get the Falcons a 2-point win, covered early week in the numbers, did not cover closing numbers. Always love that when the game lands on 2, Ryan. You don't think that happens very often. Tampa was arguably the most impressive team in Week 4. They just annihilated Philadelphia right from the get-go, 33-16, and quite frankly, the game wasn't even that competitive. It's just a total evisceration by Tampa Bay in that game last Sunday, and Baker Mayfield just continues, other than that game against the Broncos, Baker Mayfield continues to play great. 30 of 47 for 347 and 2 touchdowns, and quite frankly, should have probably had more through the air. He did have 1 on the ground as well, so 3 total touchdowns for Baker. Atlanta, like we said, got away with not playing their best game. Ryan, they scored 0 offensive touchdowns last week against New Orleans and still won a divisional game.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the Falcons, who have 2 wins by a combined 3 points. They beat the Eagles by 1, and then they won last week by 2. So I'm not too impressed by this Falcons team. I need to see more from them. Need to see more production from Kirk Cousins and the rest of the weapons on this offense. Kyle Pitts not doing anything last week. Still not. I still don't understand how it's gone year after year after year. And Kyle Pitts was supposed to be this generational talent at tight end, and still haven't found a way to see that kind of production at all. But yeah, to your point, Baker playing really well. Taking these Buccaneers to the playoffs last year, winning a playoff game last year, and doing the best he can at taking care of the football, only having 2 interceptions through the 4 games this year. So, yeah, Baker Mayfield and the Falcons, or Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. I like that side tonight going to Atlanta.
So, Atlanta's played all 4 of their games within 1 score. Lose by 8 to Pittsburgh on opening day. Of course, Steelers kicked 6 field goals, won that game, without a touchdown.
1 point game at halftime in that one.
And to be honest with you, the Chief game was a dead even game. Atlanta just didn't get the breaks in that game, losing by 5. So again, this is honestly your typical Atlanta Falcon season. There'll be a lot of close games. There's going to be a bunch of infuriating losses. There's going to be a few games that, again, the luck is on their side for, which again, Captain Kirk has, of course, quarterbacked the ultimate luck box 2 years ago in Minnesota. But, Ryan, I tend to agree with you on this game, just if we're looking at the side only here, where there's still Tampa Bay injuries. I understand that. They're going to be without multiple wide receivers tonight, but Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are going to play. It's down the board. Jalen McMillan, the rookie out of Washington, is out. Trey Palmer, who caught a touchdown a week ago, is also out. So slide in Sterling Shepard. In the let's remember some guys.
Remembers,
let's remember some guys. Luke Goedeke still out. He still hasn't passed concussion protocol. So that is a reasonable deal. But they didn't have him last week either. Still no Antoine Winfield either for them in that defensive secondary. But as they proved last week, as long as Vita Vea's on the field, Tampa Bay's defense is going to be just fine. The game they looked awful was the game that Vita Vea did not play against.
Got to be able to control the line of scrimmage, and that's the battle here. And that's kind of what I'm most worried about is no Goedeke for the Buccaneers, and Matthew Judon is going to be able to go for the Falcons. So if you can bet a Matthew Judon sack, I would be intrigued by a price there. But yeah, the injury questions are a concern. I went back and looked at the matchup history for these two teams.
I'm sure it's a fun one, Ryan.
So since they became divisional rivals, it is
2002. Everybody,
yes, 2002.
Yeah,
all time. 22-22.
Nice. Kind of like New Orleans and Atlanta going into last week.
The last 10 years.
Go ahead.
10-10.
Okay. What about the last few?
I'm not sure, breaking it down year by year, the last couple, but I did try and go the average margin of victory or the median margin of victory for the games. So last 10, Tampa has won by the median. Tampa's won by a half, and the Falcons win by an average of 2.3. And then all time, the median is Tampa by 1, and the average is Tampa by 1.25. So very tight games in this series, but again, leaning to Tampa, and so with such a tight game.
All of these NFC South teams, to me, Ryan, just throwing Carolina out. They had their 1 week with Andy Dalton where they honestly
kind of scared this weekend, but
we'll get to that. We'll get to that one. Carolina and Chicago. By the way, most expensive ticket in the National Football League this week at Soldier Field.
For some reason, yeah.
Hey, look,
the Andy Dalton revenge game, I guess.
You know that people love their football in Chicago, as we know, and the Bears are 2-2, even with all the issues they've had. But you look at this NFC South. These three teams at the top, these two playing tonight, and New Orleans, they're all evenly matched. They're all very similar teams, in all honesty, as well. Where I think they all have talent on defense and good high-end talent as well at some positional groups, or just have high-end coaching on the defensive end, which is really the case with Tampa more so than anything. Of course, Vita Vea, as we know. Quarterbacks that do a lot of things that make you scratch your head, but when they're on, they are top 10 quality guys. Yep. And they both have high-end skill position players on their rosters. These teams are so compact. These teams are all going to be in the pocket of 7 to 10 wins, probably more realistically 8 to 10 this year. I think all those teams are skewing a little higher than we expected, except for maybe Atlanta. So these divisional games, look, I don't want to overreact to a game on October 3rd. There is a lot of season left.
Yes.
But for Tampa Bay, I think this game is more important for Tampa Bay than it is Atlanta. Okay. Because if you get a win on the road in Atlanta tonight, if you're Tampa, and go to 4-1, with the tiebreak on Atlanta, you're really 2.5 games up on the Falcons heading into going squarely into October. That is a great, great place to be if you're the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and especially where the next few weeks. Here's the Bucs' schedule after tonight. They go to New Orleans. New Orleans will be a small favorite. They host Baltimore. Baltimore will be likely a small road favorite in that game. They get Atlanta again. All right, Bucs will probably be favored small in that game. They go to Arrowhead, and then they get the 49ers. This is a gauntlet coming up for the Bucs. Yep. But the one thing is that the Bucs go 3-0 in division and lose the other 3, they're going to have a stranglehold on this division because of the divisional record, Ryan. Yeah, completely in the driver's seat if you win tonight. And if you go and look at the Saints' upcoming schedule, so obviously Monday night in Kansas City. But then they play the Bucs, then they host the Broncos, go to LA against the Chargers, and go to Carolina against the Panthers. So after these two, it kind of gets a little easy for the Saints, Broncos, Chargers, Panthers. So yeah, like you were saying, Tampa needs to win this one to be in the clear driver's seat for this division. Just for posterity reasons here, Atlanta, Tampa tonight, obviously at home, at Carolina in their next game. Then they have Seattle at home, won't be particularly easy. I think the Seahawks kind of just got bit by the injury bug badly, and that really hurt them on Monday night. Tampa Bay again, Dallas, and New Orleans. So again, some winnable games in there for the Falcons, but that Bucs schedule is the hardest of the 3, and if you can get a win tonight, you really put yourself in a good position, even with that brutal schedule coming up. Because again, 3-3 with sweeping the divisional games, Tampa's in amazing shape. Yeah, if they happen to do that, I'm not sure they will, but be fun there to see what the Bucs end up doing. All right, looking at props tonight. Ryan McCormick. I want to go to the anytime touchdown market.
Okay.
One that we did not even list. Sorry, Ian. I bet this last night at MGM because it was the best numbers. I bet Sterling Shepard at 5-1.
Okay.
Just because he's the third receiving option, realistically speaking, for Tampa Bay. And when you look at the other numbers, Mike Evans is plus 1.25, and that's even shorter at some books now. Godwin's plus 150. Kate Otten, tight end, plus 320. Bucky Irving's plus 140. I just a scenario here for me where I think the Tampa numbers are a little out of whack, actually. But that 5-1 at Shepard, where, by the way, most books have him at about a 380 pocket, which I think is about right, 420 pocket at this point. That 5 that was still available about 35 minutes before the show at MGM on 5-1 at Sterling Shepard anytimer. I don't mind that as a little bit long bomb shot there, Ryan.
Well, the one I like for anytime touchdown is Chris Godwin. I've taken it each week this season. He scored in the first 3 weeks and didn't get in the end zone last week. So up, I think, 4 total units going with Chris Godwin touchdowns. So that's one that I will be on tonight just because I also have his season prop. So going to be rooting for Chris Godwin. The one that I kind of Frank took on Punchlines earlier today, and we saw Jared Goff scoring on Monday night. So the question is, will Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins score one tonight? Baker Mayfield is 5-1, and Kirk Cousins is up to 14
should be higher.
to 1.
Still should be higher.
Goodness.
Still should be higher on Kirk. You can't move.
Yeah. Huge test with that Achilles.
Just so you on Baker real quick. Yeah. Baker, who only had 7 rushing touchdowns in his NFL career entering this year, has 2 already.
Yeah.
So Baker's price is totally out of whack for what it's supposed to be.
Yep.
If you're just looking at Baker's been in the league since 2018 now. He does not score rushing touchdowns, and 50% of the game so far just has that number way shorter than it should be. Should really be in the pocket of about 8-1, 8.5-1, maybe even 9-1. Those plus 450s are just not good prices on Baker right now, Ryan.
No. The other question I kind of had, those quarterback touchdowns are longer prices than the defenses to score a touchdown. Kirk in his career against the Bucs has only thrown 1 interception. Don't necessarily know if I like it tonight. Do you at all have any interest in playing a defensive touchdown tonight?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, these teams are, I know, well, look, Atlanta had 2 last week, and one of them was a fluke. The muffed punt by Shaheed that somehow he managed to fumble into the end zone. Atlanta fell on top of it. Fluke. Total aberration touchdown. The pick 6, all right, you know what, that's more tangible, but I don't know. I wouldn't take Atlanta tonight. I think Baker will play clean football more likely than not tonight. And look, Cousins doesn't throw that many interceptions anymore. There's a lot of interceptable balls, but they just don't get intercepted. And then you need it to be returned to the house. Tampa's not going to get a special teams touchdown. Again, I would like better prices on all those. Okay. Plus 425. That's too cheap. Needed north of 7. Yeah, at least on both of those.
I'd agree there. Yeah,
in order to get a real price there. Looking at the quarterbacks real quick. Over under 1.5 touchdown passes or 2+, depending on where you happen to be betting it. Both of these guys tonight are even money to go over 1.5 touchdown passes or 2+, whatever your book has it as. Who would you rather have tonight on that, Ryan?
Honestly, I think I'd rather have Baker.
Okay.
I'm very high on the Bucs this year. I do like how this team looks, and I'm down on the Falcons. I'm just more confident in Baker Mayfield to do what he's shown us this season and towards the end of last year than Kirk Cousins with his new team that he hasn't really shown so far this year. Also looking at their scoring offenses, the Bucs are 12th in the league at 24.3 points per game, and the Falcons in the bottom half, 22nd in the league at 18.8. They're tied with the Rams and Steelers for points per game. They are worse than the Bears, Raiders, and Titans. Worse than the Bears, Raiders, and Titans. That is not a good spot to be if you're the Falcons. So again, for that touchdown prop, 2 touchdown passes, I would go more Baker, the even money, than Kirk.
100% agree with you. And Bijan Robinson's not 100% healthy. He was on an injury report this week with the leg.
Yeah.
He is fully practiced yesterday. Again, it's a little bit funky in these Thursday night games because they don't really do full practices at all during the week. And Monday's just a walkthrough on top of it. So Hey, look, we saw a lot of Tyler Algier last week. He played pretty well because Robinson was banged up. It'll be interesting to see his utilization tonight on Atlanta's offense. If he's healthy, I expect a lot of Bijan tonight. But again, if we're looking non-quarterback props, that would be the one. Be a little careful on Bijan props.
Okay.
I agree with you on Baker, though. That would be the only way I'd look to play either of those guys over 1.5 passing touchdowns. I would only look to Baker. I don't want anything to do with Kirk, which probably means Kirk is throwing 4 tonight. Right?
Yeah. That's normally how it goes. But so with that Bijan statement in question, you wouldn't like his receiving prop of 26.5?
It's a low number for him, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a super low number, so the books are baking into. They don't think he's close to 100% either. I mean, if you want to take it and hope you hit 130-yard play and that's that, yeah, you can take a shot. And I probably would steer clear.
Okay, so I tried to do a little research on this one.
Okay.
I even went back to look at Kirk Cousins versus the Buccaneers when he was with the Vikings and the Redskins.
Okay.
Just to see how he uses his running back in the passing game against the Buccaneers. So Bijan Robinson is a better running back, more talented running back than Matt Jones, Dalvin Cook, and Alexander Mattison. So with that being said, none of the 4 in the previous 3 matchups, none of those 3 running backs in the 3 matchups had gone over the receiving prop of 26.5. None of them had even caught 4 passes, which is the receptions prop for Bijan as well. But they each got 4 targets. So had they caught their targets, they would have gotten over on the prop and maybe the yardage. But I think Bijan Robinson is much more talented than the other running backs and is able to make the most of when Kirk Cousins has to check down to him, which I do anticipate a good amount of tonight. It is Bijan's 3rd career game against Tampa. The first one last year, again with Arthur Blank as his offensive coordinator. He got 1 total touch for 3 yards, not just carries or receptions. 1 total touch in the first game against the Buccaneers for 3 yards. And in the second one, he had 88 total yards on 5 catches. So I'm anticipating that if the Falcons are going to be able to stay in this game and compete and keep up with the Bucs, kind of how I anticipate the Bucs offense to go tonight, the Falcons are going to need to make the most out of Bijan Robinson's talents and get him the ball in space with swing passes, screens, whatever they need to get him over 3.5 catches and over the 26.5 yards.
Again, there are plenty worse options than that. That is a low number on Bijan. Again, it all depends on health.
Right.
If he's able to play and be close to 100%, you should be able to get there in the first half, in all honesty, Ryan. So no problem with that, going over on the receiving yards for Bijan. All right, we'll circle back to this game with Colucci in about 20 minutes from now. Let's hit the 2 college games tonight, Ryan. Okay. Texas State's playoff chances completely went out the window last week with just a gut-wrenching, blown lead game against Sam Houston, up 22-0 after 1. And they lose 40-39 in a shootout. And look, for Texas State, I really did think, especially with how good James Madison has been, if you get a win over James Madison in the Sun Belt title game, you're 12-1 with your only loss being by 3 to Arizona State. It would have put the heat on the Mountain West champion to only have 1 or if Boise State loses twice with tight losses to UNLV and Oregon in the regular season. Now it's, all right, well, James Madison's really the only one left in the Sun Belt now after this. It's up to 14 now in this game with Texas State on the road at Troy. Troy has had all sorts of problems this year, more so on their offense more than their defense. Total's been bet down from 58 to 57 in this game, Ryan McCormick.
Well, for me, Texas State's coming off back-to-back losses by a combined 4 points.
Close losses.
At home. So I think they're going to take out their frustration tonight on a really bad Troy team.
We do have news on the starting quarterback real quick.
Okay.
Because we were trying to figure this out before
Goose
the show.
Is starting or not? Yeah.
It will not be Goose tonight for Troy. It will be Tucker Kilchrist.
Okay.
Will make his first career start tonight for Troy. I will say this. I have nothing on this kid right now.
Yeah. I was preparing for either Goose or Mitchell. So
yeah, if it was going to be... If it was Goose, I was actually going to say, I know they've had their issues on offense. I was actually going to say, all right, 57, okay, you can go over it now with Kilchrist in it. This is a stay away game. If anything, maybe Troy gets an early score, dumps the number down on Texas State, and then you just go Texas State on a better number, Ryan.
Well, yeah, I mean, you letting me know the quarterbacks. I was going to say that Troy, if they had Goose starting, he may have only 84 total passes in his career in 4 years, but 7 touchdowns and no interceptions. So he's able to take care of the ball. But now I don't know what I'm going to get with this starter for Troy. So again, yeah, I'm following your lead. No play in this one for me, but tend to lean towards Texas State, taking out their frustrations for the last 2 losses.
And then the other game, Sam Houston, we just mentioned them. They pulled off that huge comeback, big win.
Yep.
Credit to Sam Houston. They were in their first year in FBS last year, won 1 game. They were as bad as anyone. They're 4-1 so far in this campaign. Again, the CUSA is not getting any college football playoff bids. It's just not going to happen. But here they are tonight, over 10 now. It's 10.5 on the road in El Paso. UTEP is bad, Ryan.
Yeah.
Total of 50. Even with that said, how would UTEP being bad, now that we've gone beyond 10, I would only take with the Miners in this game at home. Big week for that athletic program, of course, getting accepted into the Mountain West.
Yeah. I mean, UTEP has yet to win a game. They the only time this season that they scored over 20 points was an overtime loss to my alma mater, the Southern Utah Thunderbirds.
There we go.
So UTEP has not been good, and we talk about all that in the kitchen sink, trying to get on the board with a win. That might be with them tonight against Sam Houston. But Sam Houston State scored 31 plus in each of their wins this season. Their only time they didn't was when they put up 14 in a loss at UCF. So no real play for me in this one. Not at all confident in UTEP. So you may have said take the 10.5. I would be on the other side if I had a play.
Yeah, this again, neither of these teams are any good. Or excuse me, UTEP's really not good. Sam Houston, I know the record's good, but they're still a well below average football team when it comes to FBS. But in this USA, might be good enough to get to the conference title game and lose to Liberty.
Yeah.
Might be good enough at this point with how weak that conference just happens to be here in 2024. Even though I will tell you, Western Kentucky, by the way, plays UTEP a week from now, and they have the big red helmets next week. I don't care what that line is, and I know this is not sharp by any stretch, but there is a uniform bias in that game with Western Kentucky.
Those helmets are so sweet. With the eyes on the side.
You have them today on Punchlines?
No. We'll use them
make
tomorrow.
sure to have them tomorrow.
We'll have them tomorrow.
To let everyone, because I'll be there with you guys tomorrow at noon on Punchlines FN with Frank Nicotero at noon. We'll have to bring this up because those are as good as they get.
So funny.
There is a fictional 2-point raise on Western Kentucky, at least with those helmets.
They have fully embraced their mascot, and I love it.
Ryan, it was so good.
It's awesome.
So good. But again, Ryan and I, a little bit oppo. No, nothing strong in this game, but lean Sam Houston on Ryan, lean UTEP on my end for this one here tonight in El Paso. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, power rankings in the NFL. Boy, a lot of movement, a lot more than you would anticipate after a month in.
Just wait.
In the NFL. My goodness. We'll go through our power rankings and also the games that are going to stand out to you and I this weekend in both college football in the NFL when we get back. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.
Get ready to laugh with Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. Join Frank, Ryan McCormick, and their team of featured guests for your daily dose of comedy.
The deli has mayo, just a little here.
Well, Cowboys fans think it's good to be their year.
Sports.
I'm a Steelers fan. The Steelers are
sorry to hear that.
Do I hate Tom Brady? Yes. Do I respect Tom Brady? No.
And the funniest social media posts.
People want to show off their food. Boom. Wiener on a guy's shoulder. Because you're like, oh, it's Libby. Oh, she looks like my Italian aunt.
It's your one-stop spot for great laughs and a good time. Find us on YouTube at Punchlines FN. Join the chat live weekdays at noon Pacific for the ultimate blend of jokes, sports, and viral fun.
Welcome back in. It's Football Frenzy here on Sports by the Book. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick, and Ryan. As always, people are chatting along with us here on the Sports by the Book channel on YouTube. By the way, in order to be in the chat, you got to hit that subscribe button. If not going to let you chat.
Yep.
So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button if you're watching us here today for the first time.
Yeah. Well, thank you to John, Hillel, and Vince for subscribing to the channel and chiming in the chat. John first asked Tyler anytime, so I'm guessing Tyler Algier anytime touchdown.
I would imagine that would be the case.
240.
Not terrible. Not terrible if that is the price on him. That feels a little steep, actually, in all honesty, with a guy who, especially if Bijan is not out there.
Right.
Will get more touches than you would, honestly, than anyone on the Falcon fan base would like. But I like Tyler Algier. I think he's a good, solid running back. He's just not as talented as Bijan because who is?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like Jeff said, it could be worth a chance if Bijan is without a significant amount of snaps, or if Tyler Algier does see a significant amount of snaps, that could be worth it. And then Hillel was asking, who do I bet on right now?
Right now?
Right now.
This second?
This second.
This second? Like a game going on now?
Who do I bet on right now?
Just go bet the Bucks tonight, my friend. Just do that. Just go bet the Bucks on a plus money line price. Look for plus 115. That would be if you're looking for action at this second, that's the best I can do for you right now.
All right. And then we did get another new chat from Nick's. And I'm New York Yanks, so I'm a big New Yorker. Likes the under, the Bucks money line, Godwin under, I'm guessing yardage, and Bucky Irving under yardage.
I guess he likes this to be a slugfest here tonight on a Thursday night. Again, everyone who's in the chat, we'll check in about this time every show going into our power rankings, whether they be college or NFL. So again, keep chatting along.
Yep.
We see you. We see you. We know you don't agree with us all the time either, and that's okay because healthy discussion.
Wait till you see my power rankings.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait. And we're ready on the power rankings here. We'll start with mine here today. And I'm going to be honest with you, Ryan. I needed a lot of time to figure out what the heck I was doing this week. And I'll start, well, you know what? They're all up there. I'm going to go from the top this go around as opposed from going from the bottom, like we had the last few days. I'm looking for any way possible to move Kansas City out now with these injuries, and I just can't quite do it yet because everyone behind them has one flaw that I really don't like.
Okay.
And Detroit's flaw is that defense still is not as good as it needs to be in order to be considered the absolute best team in this league. Even with no Rashee Rice, even with no Pacheco, even they threw it to Kelce finally this past weekend, but even with Travis Kelce not being the same guy, and even with Patrick Mahomes not having a Patrick Mahomes season through the first month, Kansas City's defense is really good. And people have finally realized how good it is. And that's why they are still number one, because even though I have to downgrade KC's offense, and they've not looked like KC's offense so far this year, Detroit's advantage on offense just gets totally outweighed by Kansas City's advantage on defense.
Gotcha. And
also, too, Harrison Butker still, as much as I love Jake Bates, Harrison Butker is still a big advantage at the end of the game over Jake Bates in an NFL circumstance. Niners moved back up to 3. They got healthier than we expected last week. We didn't expect to see Deebo Samuel. He looked effective. The emergence of Duane Jennings is big, by the way, because Ayuk has been slow to get to this season because of the holdout. Jennings, even though it wasn't as insane as that week 3 performance, still was very effective last week, is really the number 2 wide receiver. And if Jennings really can be a high-end 3, Niners are going to be just fine even without Christian McCaffrey on offense. And I don't think we see McCaffrey until November at this rate, and maybe even late November at that.
Sorry, Ann.
What?
I said sorry, Ann. She got stuck with him in the fantasy league.
Well, you know what? I can't blame anyone for taking him at number 1. No one knew. No one knew how significant it was.
Yeah.
Number 4, Buffalo. I really thought long and hard about putting Baltimore ahead of Buffalo. If you put all the data points together so far, Buffalo still scratches slightly ahead of Baltimore.
I can see it.
Even though that's really basically at this point, if you're on neutral after what we saw last week, Baltimore would be favored. I get it, but I still have Buffalo slightly ahead of Baltimore.
Okay.
Minnesota moves up to 6. Look, if they win in London this week, it's going to be very difficult to not put them in the top 3. It's going to be very difficult not to do it. That game, I have no idea what to expect out of that game completely. We'll get to it in a little bit.
Yep.
Houston's at 7. Here's the problem. Once we get past Minnesota, I'm not all the way there on Tampa, even though I think they're solid. Washington, they were so damn low at the beginning of the year. It's hard to push them up, even though they've been, I would argue they've been the best team in the league the last 3 weeks. But it's so hard to move them up. And a defense I still have a ton of questions about. So Houston, the Jets, Green Bay, Tampa. And then after that, Pittsburgh, Seattle, even the Bengals, even after just winning a game. There are a lot of teams that are compact there that if you throw 7 through about 15 for me into a hat and pulled them out, I wouldn't have much argument anyway. Again, Green Bay's got to win a game with Jordan Love at quarterback. The Jets lost to Bo Nix at home last week. There's some ugly results from teams number 8 and 9 on that list. And Tampa, of course, was dominant against Philadelphia a week ago.
Yeah. I mean, I like your list. There's no homer play with keeping the Jets at 8?
Again, roster's still strong.
Yes.
Roster's still very strong. And again, if they, let's put it this way, if they lose in clear Minnesota's better right side angle this Sunday, they will be either 10 or out next week. But then they get, again, there are opportunities to move up. And look, I mean, again, I still go with the talent on a roster, even though the coaching staff is, boy, only this coaching staff in Las Vegas here is worse than what the Jets have at this point, Ryan.
Okay. It might be a deep statement, but sure.
Okay. Go ahead. What do you got?
All right. So my top 10.
Please don't have the Bears.
No,
okay,
they are not in the top 10. But I did do it. I know I said a couple weeks ago I would not move the Chiefs out of the number 1 spot unless Patrick Mahomes was hurt. But the Detroit Lions are my number 1 team. Okay. That performance from Jared Goff and that offense, showing their ability to run the ball, throw the ball. I get your points on the defense. But with the holes that the Kansas City Chiefs have right now, I couldn't keep them there. Right now, the Detroit Lions, I think, are the best team in football. But the Baltimore Ravens are at number 3 for me. We finally got to see what they look like with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson being able to run the football properly against a very solid team in the Buffalo Bills, who I have at number 4. Number 5 is the Minnesota Vikings. I kind of think they dominate this weekend in London. And it's going to be a very bad spot for the Jets, who I do have at number 9. But I question how that offense has seemed to work. Garrett Wilson doesn't seem to entirely be happy with the way things are going. And again, Nathaniel Hackett is just being saved by the fact that he has Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. At 6, I do have the San Francisco 49ers. I do agree with Jeff. This is a very talented roster. Just waiting for them to get fully healthy, and they will be in the top 5 easily. Number 7, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm very high on them. I think they are a very good team in this National Football League. They're complete when they are healthy. Vita Vea shores up that hole on the defensive line of scrimmage. And when you're able to control the line of scrimmage, you're able to win football games. Mm-hmm. That's something we didn't see last week with the Jets, only being able to put up 9 points against the Denver Broncos. I do still have them in the top 10 because they are a complete roster, but I need to be able to see them actually put yardage together and put points on the board, which I think is a very tough matchup this weekend in London. I don't know if that offense is going to be able to travel very well, considering the question marks that they have there. Number 10, I do have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Let me give you some grace here. They would not be number 10, but I have a personal thing with the Green Bay Packers. When they are good, when they are good, they never move ahead of 13 in my power rankings. They sit at 13.
All right,
They're a bad luck team.
let's hold on. And we're gonna have to do something here. We're going to have to build out on the bottom of the screen for Ryan. Green Bay rated 13.
Just have like an asterisk on the
Green
10
Bay
or
at 13
something.
with an asterisk of they are really blank on my list. So Is this really Green Bay at 10?
If I wasn't a Chicago Bears fan, Green Bay would probably be 8 here.
Okay.
Above Houston, above New York. But I just, the homer in me, I can't put the Packers above 13. 13's that stay away spot. Don't bet on them. Don't bet against them.
He's going unlucky number, guys.
Yeah.
Unlucky number for Green Bay.
Yeah, that's why Green Bay sits at 13. But that is my top 10. We did get the Philadelphia Eagles did fall out last week.
I couldn't move them out as
quick enough.
Yeah. And for the Eagles, look, I'll just throw this out there. The fact that Slay was on the podcast with Parsons immediately after that game.
It's so wild what that locker room was turned into.
So bad. Yeah. Everything in Philadelphia. Look, that team is unbelievable. Them and the Jets have a lot of similarities. Both of those teams are loaded with talent. The difference is the coordinators in Philadelphia, I still think, are competent. But Sirianni, I mean, how is he still there? Lost the locker room, lost control of the locker room. Also, Jalen Hurts is regressing this year as well, which I figured the regression would come at some point for him. But it's been a little steeper than I would have liked through a month so far.
Is that regression, do you think, because of the consistent change of coordinators? Or was Jason Kelce...
I don't think it's Kelce.
A legit point to that offense.
I don't think it's Kelce.
No?
I think the regression started coming last year anyway. Hurts. He was so good the year they made the Super Bowl. And I still argue that Jalen Hurts' best game in his career was the Super Bowl loss.
Yeah.
He went punch for punch with Patrick Mahomes when Mahomes was at his best.
Could have won MVP in that game.
If Philadelphia did, he would have been unanimous.
Yep.
He was amazing. I have just worried the last year plus now with Hurts that his NFL career peaked in that game.
Okay.
Just his ability, just him playing at a super high level. Last year, again, they got off to that fictitious start where they just kept winning close game after close game, or 10-1, and then the wheels completely fell off. I worry about Jalen Hurts, especially with how just volatile everything is at the moment.
Well, yeah, and you lose your best two weapons, Devonta Smith and AJ Brown.
That doesn't hurt. That doesn't help things, right?
Not at all. No.
Let's go to what we're looking at in Week 5 and also in college this week. Before our friend Duane Colucci hops on with us in about 5 to 10 minutes, we brought up the London game, Jets and the Vikings. So
we actually had a live chat asking who we like in London town this weekend.
So I'm just going to say this. Matchup for the Jets, this is a nightmare matchup.
Yes.
Because even though Minnesota is last in the NFL in allowing passing yards, they are still number 1 in the NFL in sacks. And they stopped the run. The Jets have had a hard time run blocking the whole year, basically, so far. Rodgers is dealing with a bum knee at the moment on top of it. So this is a brutal matchup at the wrong time for the Jets, coming off that disaster at home against Denver last week. The only thing I will say, remember, we went in depth on this in the week of New Orleans and Philadelphia. If Saquon Barkley catches that ball against Atlanta, Philadelphia, who is a 2.5-point favorite sight unseen on that Monday night, probably enters New Orleans as a 2 or a 1.5-point favorite. They entered New Orleans as a 2.5-point underdog. I know AJ Brown didn't even play in that Falcon game either. On the look-ahead numbers, this was Jets 2.5. I understand there's a data point with Minnesota going to Lambeau and beating Green Bay, but if Greg Zuerlein makes that kick and the Jets hold and win 12-10, even with how ugly it was, this game's a pick. This game's Jets 1. So I'm not saying bet the Jets, because there are other concerns, a lot of other concerns in this game. But if we're just going this from a straight market play, I don't think that what happened last week justifies a 5-point swing. Maybe it justifies a 2.5-point swing or maybe even a 3-point swing. It does not justify a 5-point swing in my mind, Ryan.
I don't know if it just comes down to last week, though. I completely understand losing the Broncos does that for the Jets.
I think that has more to do with this line being where it is than Minnesota winning in Green Bay, honestly.
Well, I think it not only Minnesota winning in Green Bay, but I think it's the fashion they beat San Francisco, the fashion that they beat Houston, that has played into this. But I mean, Brian Flores is doing great things with that defense, and you had talked about the passing numbers, but I think that plays into the fact that the Vikings were up 28 points in Green Bay last week. A lot of these yardages are from Houston and San Francisco and the Giants and the Packers having to play catch up in these games and not being able to run a real balanced offense. So I think that Vikings pass defense number is a little bit skewed. And so I'm all over the Vikings in this one. I think that defense travels much better than the Jets offense does. And the Jets have a lot of things to figure out after only putting up 9 points against the Bo Nix led Broncos. So I'm on the Vikings in this one.
Going to Buffalo and Houston real quick. The Stephon Diggs Bowl, unless if you ask Frank Nicotero. If you haven't seen it,
then the last game might be the Stephon Diggs Bowl.
Yeah, exactly. Pick behind us. Buffalo's a 1-point favorite in most places right now. Total's 47. I think this is an awesome bounce back spot for Buffalo.
Yeah.
I know Houston is 3-1, but
they've escaped.
There are a lot of cracks in the armor here for the Texans through these first 4 weeks. They won by 2 in Indianapolis because Indy had no chance of stopping Joe Mixon that day. And by the way, Joe Mixon's still questionable as of right now, so we don't know if he'll be able to go. Has missed the last 2 weeks. Bear game, I mean, they did everything in their power to keep Chicago in that game, winning by 6. And then getting blown out by Minnesota. And then last week, Jacksonville should have won that game.
Yep.
If Doug Peterson just doesn't call the worst play imaginable, where Tiki Barber in the broadcast booth for CBS was able to say quarterback draw. Of course, the defense knows a quarterback draw is coming at that point. If the broadcasters, and obviously Tiki, a great NFL player in his day, but still, if you're able to call it from up there, you know that the players on the field know what's coming here. Look, I'm not saying Houston's not going to win the AFC South. I'm not saying Houston's not going to win 10, 11 games this season. I just think after getting embarrassed like they did on Sunday night by Baltimore, this is a great spot for Buffalo to get their act together, go to Houston and win this game outright. Pick 1-point favorite.
I completely agree with you. The only thing that scares me is that it's in Houston, and this Texans team has all the talent in the world, and it is a Stephon Diggs revenge game. But the Bills, got embarrassed last weekend, allowing 151 rushing yards to Derrick Henry, allowing over 280 rushing yards to the Baltimore Ravens. Complete bounce back spot on the road in Houston in this one. So I don't fully understand why the line moved from Bills 1 to pick. I understand that it's in Houston, and that is what scared me off of this one, but I would think it moves the opposite way, and the Bills get the favoritism.
I think there's a lot of Buffalo 1 out there roster right now. Chris and company are at the market low. Again, I just think the Bills are better. Bills, by the way, get the Jets the week after, so this is a weird sandwich spot, though. But the Diggs angle, I think, really avoids this from being a pure sandwich spot like it normally would be with big primetime games at Baltimore and New York, of course, surrounding this one here in Houston. All right, we'll take a quick break. When we get back, Duane Colucci will join us, get his perspective for tonight's game and also other games across Week 5 in the NFL. And it's a pretty significant football game here in Vegas tomorrow. It's not the Raiders. It's UNLV. Look at Duane's thoughts from behind the counter as well. When we get back, Sports by the Book Football Frenzy.
Get ready to laugh with Punchlines with Frank Nicotero. Join Frank, Ryan McCormick, and their team of featured guests for your daily dose of comedy.
The deli has mayo. Just a little here.
What Cowboys fans think it's good to be their year.
Sports.
I'm a Steelers fan. The Steelers are
sorry to hear that.
Do I hate Tom Brady? Yes. Do I respect Tom Brady? No.
And the funniest social media posts.
People want to show off their food. Boom. Wiener on a guy's shoulder. Because you're like, it's Libby. She looks like my Italian aunt.
It's your one-stop spot for great laughs and a good time. Find us on YouTube at Punchlines FN. Join the chat live weekdays at noon Pacific for the ultimate blend of jokes, sports, and viral fun.
Welcome back in. It's Football Frenzy here on Sports by the Book. Jeff Parles, Ryan McCormick alongside. And now joining us from the Rampart up in Summerlin, race and sportsbook director at that great property, our good friend Duane Colucci with us right now. Duane, good afternoon, my friend.
Happy to join you guys. A beautiful, lovely Thursday afternoon in 100-degree heat still in Las Vegas.
Yes,
so
in October,
knows. Yeah, exactly. Usually it gets cold, and you guys could attest to that. Like around Halloween, I don't know about it this year. It's going to be a scorcher.
Yeah, we're going to get to Thanksgiving and still be touching the 90s.
I will tell you right now, it is definitely not 90 degrees in this studio right now.
No, it is. It is cold in here.
My office, either. You can hang meat in here. Have a big steak.
Duane, let's go to the football game tonight. Falcons, Bucks, fun matchup, NFC South. Both of these teams, solid football teams. Tampa 3-1, Falcons 2-2. Falcons 2.5-point favorites tonight. Duane, what are you seeing up at your shop?
Yeah, let me tell you, it's 2.5 Falcons currently. The ticket right, though, is favoring the Buccaneers now. We're starting to see the ticket count get up there, almost 2-1. Not there just yet, but a lot of people are taking Baker and, hoping that the Buccaneers could overcome this deficit on the road. I think it's an exciting game. I mean, definitely tough to handicap, and that plays into our favor as bookmakers. It's gone from 2.5. I'm not so sure we're going to see no threes here, so it's definitely going to be a game with a decision, and it's a nice Thursday night matchup considering both teams need to win and get above that 500 mark or stay above the 500 mark. So an interesting game. Like I said, almost a 2-1 ticket count, not just there yet for Tampa Bay. Money is a little high on the Buccaneers as well. Total is 44 currently at the Rampart in South Point.
So for this one, Tampa and Atlanta are both kind of the middle of the pack in offense and defense. Have you seen any kind of real movement or one particular side to the total?
Well, it's just you have a lot of people, Ryan, that are teasing this game, and for the future games, whether it's tomorrow, the UNLV game, like you guys were talking about, or other marquee matchups, Michigan State. We took a big wager on Sparty earlier in the week, so what I'm seeing is a lot of teasers and parlays hooked up. Nothing really concise to where people are overwhelmingly, putting a foothold. So this has been bet very strangely. This game, we opened the game, Ryan, at 43.5, and it's at 44. So you're definitely not seeing much movement on the total as well. So a great game. Like I said, it's going to be, if Cousins could win again on prime time, that would be something special for him because, he's been a synonymous bet against on prime time NFL action. But, he started to move that needle a little. And, Mayfield was outspoken with his comments about Tom Brady. But, he does have a happy clubhouse, it seems like. They do rally around this kid. Not similar to what was happening in Cleveland. It seems like he's embraced in Tampa Bay. So you have two very popular named quarterbacks here, and it's going to be interesting on the center stage of a Thursday night how they perform.
Yeah, it's a fascinating game here with Tampa and Atlanta. Both of us on the desk leaning to the Bucks, which, again, go get your Falcon tickets in right now if that's the case. So Atlanta, 2.5-point favorites on that one. Duane, is there any action on either of the college games up at your shop tonight? That's Texas State, 2 touchdown favorites against Troy, and then Sam Houston, a 10.5 against UTEP tonight.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. And, you have almost a 2-1 ticket count on Texas State. I'm looking at it right here, minus 14 at Troy. Also, the other game, you're also seeing a nice ticket count in favor, about 3-1 in favor of Sam Houston State. So we are seeing some good action, definitely some more interesting college games. Not the flashier teams, but people still like to wager on these games. This is how it goes. We opened Texas State at 13.5, so moving it to 14, that's a key number, and we're at 14 on this game after opening it at 13.5, and we're standing solid basically on the Sam Houston State game, 10.5, because the money isn't that overwhelming, although the ticket count is, Jeff. So sometimes ticket count is really high, but we are not going to move the number. It's all about money, and a lot of those tickets are on teasers and parlays to the future games, like I said. So that's how we book it here at the Rampart in South Point, and Chris does a fabulous job. I can't say this enough. Chris has done an amazing job, especially with last weekend in the NFL. It was a tough weekend for the books, and it was not winning. Everybody thinks we just constantly rake it in. No, there were a lot of key games, and it was a huge decision. If Baltimore ever won that game by 3, that would have definitely been a huge decision on Sunday night, and we avoided it, and definitely it was a great bookmaking job by Chris and the boys at the South Point.
Duane, let's go to this weekend in the NFL first before we hit some college games. London, always a fun one. 6:30 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah,
Duane.
not fun. I got to get up at 4:30. When you talk about fun one, it's a nightmare.
Look, we love Duane because he's always honest with us too. Aaron Rodgers,
and I'm an East Coast. I'm still used to the time change.
Yeah,
Even though I'm here 30 years.
So Aaron Rodgers and the Jets, of course, we talked about it earlier. Disaster last week, losing to Bo Nix and the Broncos with 60 passing yards last week for Denver. This game, look, I know that there weren't any look-aheads at the South Point or at your shop, but look-aheads that were still out until Sunday morning had this Jets 2.5-point favorites. Now it's settled in as Jets 2.5-point underdogs in this game in the early morning for us here in Vegas. Minnesota, of course, goes in one of the remaining few undefeateds in the NFL.
Yeah, and I'm not sold on them yet. Somebody was asking me about Minnesota. Mr. Fawkes there, Brian Fawkes, he was asking me about Minnesota, and I'm not sold on them yet. Let me tell you something. They are definitely, I knew that Donald would do a good job. You have the best wide receiver in the game on this team, but I think they're taking advantage of teams that are injured right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how the measuring stick goes on in that division when Detroit and Green Bay are fully healthy, and they almost blew that game last weekend, and that was definitely Jordan Love's first game back. You don't feel that he was, 100% coming off the injury, but when these other opponents are at 100%, and even like Ryan said, his Bears won, this becomes a tough division. I don't think Minnesota is as dominant as they perceived early on in the season. They played some great games, don't get me wrong, and I love Donald, I love Jefferson, I love what the coaching staff is doing, but this is a very difficult division, and I still think teams like Detroit and Green Bay can move the stick past Minnesota if they start to get healthy and play at the top of their game. Now, like you said, you're looking at a 2.5-point favorite. Ticket count is nearly 4.5, 5-1 in favor of Minnesota, but the Jets are in a good rebounding position. They have to, Jeff, you know it. They have to get Garrett Wilson ultimately involved. End it with Lazard. I mean, I understand there was that past camaraderie, but now you're even looking for Devontae Adams possibly, and how much could you do for Aaron Rodgers? Now, it didn't work in Green Bay. Why are you going to continually bring these guys back that he used to play with when he's got one Super Bowl title in how many years of playing? Let's move forward. Let's not always point fingers at Robert Saleh either. He's doing the best that he can, but they have to get the younger guys, Hall and definitely Wilson, more involved. Aaron Rodgers has looked very mobile, but he needs a little more protection in his defense. This is why he has been so critical. And, the defense, losing a game to Denver, there's no excuse for that. That makes you look just ultimately poor, and it does put a lot of pressure on Saleh. You saw the New York Post and Daily News were in attack mode. They're also trying to perceive that he and Rodgers don't have that much of a good relationship, and this has to be rectified. This is a perfect game. You get away from the United States, get away from New York, and maybe they will be able to compete here. And I think they definitely can compete here because, like I said, Minnesota is not the best team in the NFL. I'll tell you that right now. I don't believe they'll win the Super Bowl if they even get there. So there's a lot of football to be played left, guys, and especially on the NFC side and the AFC side. And the Jets have somewhat been a disappointment so far, but that division is definitely up for grabs, and they could grasp that division if they win 3 or 4 games consecutively, because we know Buffalo, they came right back down to earth. They were playing a little over their head. Miami is decimated with injuries, and I just know how New England is. They're not a playoff team.
Well, I loved hearing the Aaron Rodgers baggage, but I will go to the to the team that you just mentioned in the Buffalo Bills, going to Houston to take on the Texans. Both of these teams hoping to compete for the 1 seed in the AFC, have the AFC postseason go through either Buffalo or Houston. So what are you seeing in that one, and do you have any sort of side?
Yeah, I definitely, Ryan, like Houston in this position. Now we're at pick 'em because everybody thinks Buffalo's going to bounce right back. But let's put it this way. Everybody thought Buffalo was going to have a down year, and then they win 3 in a row, and now everybody jumps on the bandwagon. This is why us bookmakers love the NFL, because it's a week-to-week decision, and now people are starting to question Houston, but they still have a tremendous amount of talent on paper. We know how good Stroud is. He's just a phenomenal quarterback. Once him and Diggs and Collins all get on the same page and you can protect this kid, they're going to show flashes of brilliance on offense. So, I definitely think this is a good position for Houston at home to win again, possibly. But Buffalo is very difficult. It's hard to get a read on this Buffalo Bills team, but Allen is still, capable of making mistakes when you put pressure on this guy, and he will just throw the ball up for grabs. He likes to run in, suspect positions, gets crushed once in a while. So we have to keep an eye on Josh Allen. They've played over their heads so far, in my opinion, whereas Houston has underachieved, and yet we're talking about two teams that are 3-1 and moving forward in the AFC.
Okay.
Duane, before we let you go, I want to ask you about two more games, one on the NFL and then one on the college front. Cowboys and Steelers. Have to go there. Sorry, I have to do it to you. It looks like Micah Parsons is going to miss his first game ever due to injury. Lawrence also banged up for Dallas. Pittsburgh's 3-1 coming off of a loss. Still looks like it's Justin Fields' team, at least for the time being. Steelers right now in this game, 2.5-point favorites against the boys on Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, you can't bench Fields at this point, and definitely with that two-prong running attack of him and Harris, depending on how Harris's arm is, it's definitely going to be tough for the Cowboys. Their defense is the liability, and now, like you said, you're missing Parsons, missing Lawrence, everybody's banged up. You don't know if Dak and CD are going to explode and play a real good game. You have Brandon Cook still there. Their offense is very capable. Dowdle is definitely the running back they should be going to. Use Zeke in some spots, but Dallas is definitely under the microscope now, especially with Jaden Daniels and Washington emerging. The Commanders all of a sudden have taken control of this division. And you could see this division is up for grabs. The Eagles have fallen off the map. And, it's even hard to fathom them, playing in another NFC championship game the way they are coached and the way they are playing. Now, don't get me wrong. The Eagles could get healthy and mindset could get corrected immediately and they would become the front runner. But the Commanders have been playing lights out. Credit to Jaden Daniels. Dallas wants to keep pace here. Sitting at 2-2, this is a very, very winnable game if they could hold the Steelers in check, but it's all on that defense, guys. Zimmer's done a terrible, terrible job. It's a 360 from last year, in my opinion. I think there's a lot of pressure on Dak and the running game. They have to play ball control here because that's what Pittsburgh is going to try to do, Jeff. They're going to try and play the ball control, keep the hands out of Dak Prescott, the ball out of his hands, and try and dominate this game. This is a tough game. That's why it's sitting at 2.5. Slight ticket count favor in Cowboys' favor. Money is about 2-1 on the Cowboys, but small amount so far.
Duane, I'm going to go to college football, and you had mentioned that you'd taken a bet on Sparty plus the points against Oregon this weekend. Sparty's lost their last two games versus Boston College and Ohio State, so two teams that are formidable opponents and proven that they've kind of are a good team this year in college football. So going against the number 6 team in Oregon, why do you think you took a bet on Sparty?
I think it was just buying a good number. I mean, this should be a blowout on paper. You're looking at 23.5. You're in excess of 3 touchdowns. For it to get to 24.5 is not out of the question. The ticket count is high on Oregon. There's going to be tons of parlays and teasers on this team. A very tough spot for Sparty. I think it was just a sharp that was trying to buy a good number that we had at the Rampart and South Point. So, I'm looking at it right now. What are we at? 23.5. Oregon total is at 52. So, very tough game for Sparty. I think that they're coming into basically a bull ring and they're going to get blown out.
Duane, one last one. I gotta bring it up because this is the biggest home game in UNLV football history until they play Boise State 3 weeks from now.
Right.
But here you go. Duane, you guys opened it at 7 when you guys opened it. But before that, when other books that open on Sunday came out, This was 4. This was 3.5. This was 5. And since then, it had been a one-way traffic on UNLV until you guys opened 7 and stabilized at 6.5 across the market over here the last few days.
Yeah, tough game to handicap. I'll be honest with you. I think this is a very, very difficult game. Okay, the Rebels came out. They blew out. We knew all the parity last week. Quarterback left the team looking for some money. A weird situation that we have not seen before as bookmakers in the college landscape. But UNLV just blew the doors off the opponent. Syracuse was beaten up on Holy Cross. They have to travel across the country. Very tough spot in Allegiant Stadium. UNLV definitely wants to make a bowl game, but this may be a measuring stick game. This is a very, very tough opponent in my estimation for the Rebels, and this is going to be a true telling tale. We're sitting at 6.5 currently at the Rampart in the South Point. Ticket count is 3-1 on UNLV, but you anticipate that because of what neck of the woods we are in, and everybody wants to see the Rebels succeed. I kind of like the underdog in this spot. It's a tough game, though. Like you said, a lot of places opened it at 3.5, 4. That was a little undervalued. You're going to take a plethora of Rebel money, but it could be smart bookmaking as well, where you want all that Rebel money because you know that Syracuse and a high-powered offense is coming in to Allegiant Stadium. So this works both ways. I think we have the right line at the Rampart and South Point. I would probably be looking at the underdog personally. I don't want anybody to get upset, though, here in Las Vegas. My heart, I'm wearing the red, so, yep. I'm going with the Rebs. But, wherever we need the money and wherever the money settles and who we're rooting for is determined by that. But a tough game, in my opinion, Jeff. I think definitely Syracuse, the Orange Men can, compete in this spot.
Should be a fun ball game tomorrow at Allegiant Stadium. As I was saying to Vinny, the area by the Hacienda Bridge over by the Strip with the Aces and the Liberty, and then Allegiant Stadium right across it are going to be
and the drop closure.
Well, that too. Yeah, exactly. Totally forgot about that. Actually,
no, thank you.
Right. With that, the implosion. Exactly. The implosion. Yeah, exactly. Duane Colucci, everyone. I'll see him up at the Rampart. Racing Sportsbook Director up there. Duane, thanks, buddy. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Duane.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you guys having me on. It's always a pleasure on Sports by the Book. The best sports betting information channel and show there is out there.
My guy, Duane Colucci, as always. All right, big thanks to Ann and Jerry in the back, making sure we're in order up here on the desk. Ryan, fun as always. We'll see you again tomorrow on Punchlines. It'll be you, me, and Frank tomorrow at noon, and we'll also see you on this show again on Monday at 3:00. This show's back tomorrow, 2:00. It's our Fun Football Friday edition. Vinny Magliulo, Chris Andrews, Jimmy Vaccaro, all will stop by to preview the weekend in football. For Ryan McCormick, I'm Jeff Parles. We'll see you again next time. Sports by the Book, Football Frenzy.